Hello again, class. I'm back talking about chapter 10, sex. Without further ado, let me share my screen. We're on objective 3. I know objective 2 was heck long. But now we're finally on objective 3. And we're going to discuss gender differences in sex and sexual selection. Okay, well, explaining gender differences in sexual behavior has been kind of a controversial thing, but there's been some pretty clear gender differences that transcend culture. So all around the world, we see that men have more, and by this I'm talking about individuals identifying as men, we have more sexual partners and more jealousy than those identifying as women. Also, people identifying as women tend to want, if you ask them what they want in a partner, they tend to want good providers, whereas people identifying as men tend to want attractiveness in a partner. And so that's kind of at the top of the list, attractiveness for men and providers for women. Okay, and I don't mean to assume that we have a binary here. Obviously, we do not have just men and women, but non-binary folks have not been studied as much as those identifying as men and those identifying as women. There's a lot of overlap here, okay? So don't think that men and women are so different. Everybody wants kindness in a partner. Everybody wants intimacy with a partner. So there's really no big differences with a lot of things, but that is one difference that does stand out. Okay, so a theory arose that is a bit controversial to explain this. And the idea is that different behaviors evolved for men and women because of children, and particularly because women, at least in mammals, females are going to carry children in the womb for a period of time. So because women have to have 9 months with baby in uterus, then that has evolved a separate set of behaviors than men. Okay, so the idea is that men want as much sex as they can get because sperm are cheap. Okay, so if a man gets somebody pregnant, it's not costing his body anything. For a woman, getting pregnant is serious. That's like 9 months of. But a man can get as many women pregnant as possible, right? If he wants to, because the sperm pretty much cost him nothing. So the idea is evolutionarily, those who have gone out and had as much sex as possible with as many different partners as possible have been reproductively successful and passed on those behaviors. They also, men presumably want to be assured of paternity. So they're jealous because if you're a woman and you got a baby in your belly, yeah, you know you're the mom, you know what I'm saying? But for men, they don't necessarily know if they're the dad of that baby. And so also, men are supposedly wanting to identify reproductively valuable women, because if they're having sex with women of menopausal age, then they're not going to be able to get them pregnant. And so those men who were attracted to older women might have, again, not been as reproductively successful. So the idea is that this stuff got bred in over generations, these behaviors. Women, again, can only get pregnant about once a year, tops, and that's if there's no birth control at all. They're going to be motivated to be choosy about their men. So they're not going to just have sex with any man, because they're basically going to have to raise this man's baby. And so they're looking for good genes. They're looking for attractive men. They're looking for resources, meaning money, basically, or other kinds of property or cars or whatever, because those are indications that they're going to be able to help raise those kids. And again, this is controversial. Always theories of the evolution of behavior are controversial. So a lot of people are concerned about that, but I'm just put it out there as, you know, you decide. It makes some sense in terms of trying to explain what's going on universally across cultures, but again, it has its critics. Okay, I want to talk about the various types of intersex condition. Inter means between, sex is, of course, biological sex. So this means that biologically you are in between male and female. Okay, so intersex people have an intermediate anatomy somewhere in between male and female. Now, anatomy is a continuum, right? So you can be highly male, highly female, and then you can be anywhere in between. So it occurs in about 1% of the population where you have a clearly intermediate anatomy. And this is somebody previously, it used to be that what we did back in the old days was that you would just assign anybody intermediate to be a girl, and then they would do surgery to basically make this person into a girl. And it was pretty horrific surgery because a lot of times it meant cutting off genital organs. And so you had a lot of sensation problems and things like that. Basically, it was easier to make a clitoris than it is to make a penis. So that's why they always assigned them to be a girl. Okay, so one of the conditions that produces is called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and that is when the adrenal gland in an XX female will overproduce testosterone, and that sometimes is caused by a tumor in the mom or in the baby, and so you get a high amount of testosterone in what otherwise would be a female pregnancy, and you get masculinization of the external genitals. Now here you can see that masculinization. Her clitoris is gone very large, looks like a penis, and there's a kind of, the labia look a lot like a scrotum. Of course, this person does not have testes because they did not have the SRY gene from the Y chromosome because they don't have a Y chromosome. Okay, so as kids, these kids have been studied and they tend to be more likely to like male typical toys, male typical sports. As adults, they tend to report more physical aggression and male occupation. So again, it looks like that testosterone not only affects the genitals, but it affects the brain as well. No surprise there. There is another condition called androgen insensitivity syndrome or testicular feminization. And what that is somebody who's genetically XY, so would be a male pregnancy XY. But you know, testosterone, you have testosterone, but it can't bind to the receptors. So basically it's a receptor problem. Your body really doesn't recognize that testosterone. And there's complete androgen insensitivity, and then there's partial androgen insensitivity, which is more common, which is where you getting some effect of testosterone, but not a lot. A lot of times the genitals will look female, like you see down here. Typically this person identifies as female, has no problems identifying as female. The brain has not been masculinized because you're not getting a huge amount of testosterone to the brain either, because again, you're not recognizing testosterone. One of the big tip-offs is that puberty. Now, typically this person is raised, if they've never had a genetic test, you don't realize that they're XY. So they've been raised as a female. A lot of times you find testes inside, but again, unless you get, you know, a scan, you're not going to know that. There's no ovaries, no uterus. So you don't find that out until puberty. And then typically in puberty, you find that you're not getting cycling like women do. You don't get pubic hair and stuff like that. So, so at any rate, these are women that grow up as women, but in fact, they're XY male. There's been a big controversy, by the way, about these women being involved in sports, and that's why I have a picture of Castra Semenya there. She's got partial androgen insensitivity syndrome, but identifies definitely as a woman and has female genitalia and has been a woman all her life. She's running like crazy and she's doing very, very well in races, and people are concerned that she's got a lot of testosterone, and so that may be giving her an advantage. There's been a lot of controversy over that. Okay, one final thing is delayed penises. And this was a genetic mutation that happened in different parts of the world, but one of the areas in which it was studied was in the Dominican Republic. And these were kids who basically grew up, when they were born, they were sexed as female, and they grew up as girls. But then what happened is that their penises grew in basically at puberty. And this was caused by a 5-alpha reductase deficiency. 5-alpha reductase is a enzyme that will convert testosterone to dihydrotestosterone. They needed that dihydrotestosterone early in life to form the penis. But later on at puberty, the penis grew in just by the influx of testosterone that happened in puberty. So at any rate, they grew up as girls and all of a sudden developed a penis. Their clitorises grew into a penis. Now, they did not have trouble. In fact, they had more trouble as girls early in life, and a lot of them were insisting that they were boys. Their brains were masculinized by the testosterone. They only needed the dihydrotestosterone for the development of the genitals. So in fact, when their penises did grow in, most of them were happy and well-adjusted, and finally felt like themselves. Okay, we're going to go on to talk about biological bases of sexual orientation in the next video. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you again soon.